back to another Doctor Who Big Finish review. Today I'm going to be continuing my look at the 2017 10th Doctor and Rose adventures with the third and final story, called Vengeance, written by Matt Fitton, and features the return of the Ice Warriors, or should I say, Ice Warriors. Yay, I'm getting into character for this one. This is in fact the first ever 10th Doctor adventure to feature an actual character that we've had within the TV show itself. So it's nice to see that we've finally got an episode with an actual televised character. However, I'm glad that it's actually took this long. I think that one of the main things to actually do with this series was involve new aliens into it. So it's completely new ones, new aliens, new landscapes is a real good thing. To start off with, and as per usual, in the description below, I will leave the link to go buy this release from the Big Finish website. It's currently out now. The standard physical CD of just this episode is $10.99. You can get it on MP3 download for $8.99. However, at the same time, you can also, of course, buy the collector's edition glossy book version that is limited edition to the Big Finish website exclusive, and it is, and the physical edition is £35 and the download version is £25, and it looks similar to this thing here. As you can see, this is volume 1. How exciting and shiny. But yeah, I picked that up in all 3 videos now because it's just been sat over there. But yeah, generally overall, these are generally quite nice. I like these more than the physical CD for the special ones, just because they look kind of cool, don't they? And they come in like an old book format and thing. But yeah, it depends what one you like, and if you're just thinking of getting one singular release, then it's good to see that they're actually doing these standard single CD versions as well. And as I was saying, this episode is called Vengeance, and it is written by Matt Fitton, a regular for the Big Finish team. Once again, he in fact written Technophobia from volume 1, and he's one of my favourite Big Finish writers. I think that he's the natural new series writer. I think he's done quite a lot, in fact, for the new series line, such as Unit. I do believe that he's one of the main producers of that series. Also the script editor for all 3 of the episodes that I've been reviewing recently. So yeah, this episode is also directed by Nicholas Briggs. And generally for this one as well, once again, a little bit of a larger cast, however, some smaller roles in this one. Also, before I even get into this episode, if you've not checked out my previous reviews of The Infamy of Zaros and The Sword of the Cavalier, then I do recommend checking out those episodes, as I will not be going into them in this review. And generally overall, probably at the end of this one, I'll give a little bit of an overview of the whole entire box set. The cast for this release, of course, David Tennant as the 10th Doctor. Once again, a little bit of a similar thing for the previous episodes, as in, he was really good. I think that he's definitely adapting a little bit more to the audio format. Something of which that was with Volume 1 that concerned me a little bit was he wasn't exactly grabbing my attention. I think that with David Tennant, he's of course a very good actor on actual TV, and he has done a few radio plays in the past. However, I think that his Doctor needed a little bit of adapting to the audio format. And I think that throughout these episodes, his Doctor has definitely adapted a lot more. He's definitely got used to the audio format and a little bit more, and this is definitely relevant in this release. I think that generally exactly the same compliments. Rather fun, rather comedic, definitely that Series 2 version of the 10th Doctor that, to be quite honest, I think that I prefer more than the later half of the 10th Doctor. There was a little bit more egotistical and annoying. I think that generally for this one, once again, he had some nice moments when confronting darker situations and sort of more deadly situations, so that is quite good. But I don't really think that there's anything for this one that actually makes me think, you know what, this was a standout moment. There is in fact a rather nice moment where he breaks over some telecom and says something like, "This is a irregular announcement coming from your sponsor, the Doctor," or something like that. It's within the trailer, so if you'd like to listen to that, then do listen to the trailer. But yeah, generally, he had some nice moments, as I say, which being that telecom moment, so that was quite good. Billie Piper for this one, she actually had a little bit more to do. I think that in this one, she had a few more standing on her own 2 feet moments, especially towards the later half of the episode. She in fact gets split off from the Doctor to go and have her own little adventure, so that is very good. Once again, there's similar compliments with Billie Piper from the previous adventures as well. Generally overall, a very good actress. She had some really nice moments, and yeah, I'm enjoying them both being back together again in the audio format. Very sort of nostalgic, if I can call 2006 nostalgic, but yeah, very sort of capturing of that era of Doctor Who, so that is quite good. So yeah, generally overall for this release and all the other ones, I'm really happy with the Doctor and Companion. And also for the villain for this release, we of course have the Ice Warriors. They're voiced by Nicholas Briggs as per usual, and they are in fact specifically called Lord Haskor, or Haskor, and also Commander Slan. But yeah, very Ice Warrior-esque names for this one. I would like to do the whole review in an Ice Warrior voice, but that'll be incredibly annoying probably within the first few seconds. But yeah, generally the Ice Warriors are pretty good for this one. Very nicely voiced. It's a shame for this one that I would love Big Finish to maybe adapt them to have a little bit more of the sort of classic whisper in there, to be a bit more, you know, because I just think that is something that is missing from the TV show, because we've seen them in Series 10 of Doctor Who and they still didn't really have much of that whisper in there, so it would be nice to maybe see a little bit more of that classic basically voice brought back in as opposed to the more deeper voice. But yeah, generally not really too many complaints for the voice for this one, but it was still pretty decent, considering, as I say, this is the first villain that has in fact been within the actual TV show for the new series 10th Doctor Adventures. I think it was a pretty good one to actually involve them within, and yeah, generally it's nice to see the Ice Warriors with the 10th Doctor as well. Other little mentions for the cast as well, we also have Kezia Joseph as Lorna, Maureen Beattie as Brona Volta, then you have Sean Biggerstaff as Colonel Volta, Anthony Stewart Hicks as Management / Bart, and then of course Nicholas Briggs, as I was saying. So generally a rather small cast for this one, however that is very sort of rather effective when it comes to the format. As a little bit of a brief recap, of course Infamy of Zaros was a little bit more of your comedic sort of sci-fi show romp, and then we also have episode 2 that was more of the historical aimed science fiction format, and then with this one, of course, once again we're back to the sci-fi format, and it's pretty much your stereotypical base under siege, but base just so happens to be a massive ice orb that is going to crash into a planet. So it's one of those life and death situations where you've got an orb that is going to crash because the Ice Warriors have took it over, and they want to once again kill absolutely everybody on the planet below because of a little bit of a grudge from 500 years ago. So a little bit of an average plot, rather new series-y-esque at the same time, and I also think a little bit classic series-esque as well, really. Sort of your general run-of-the-mill idea, however it has a few nice little elements in there that are introduced in the later half to give it a little bit more of a personal feel, and something of which that really makes you think at the end of the episode, to base around the idea of comparing the Ice Warriors and humanity. And I think that that is something that is in fact very effective, especially for the later half of this episode, especially when you're purposely thinking this is a little bit of your generic run-of-the-mill, and it introduces that idea at the very end and you kind of think, oh, that had a nice message behind it, so I do quite like that. However, just at the same time, because of the order that I've reviewed these releases, of course you've had two naturally rather original ones at the very start of the series, and then this ending one, as I say, is a little bit more of your standard base under siege, and it is naturally expected. If you've got 3 stories, the likelihood with it being a 54-year-old plus TV show is that you're going to have some that feel like other stories. It is pretty much impossible to have a completely new and original idea for Doctor Who, and I think that the fact of saying it maybe not be completely original isn't exactly a bad thing. I think that Matt Fitton has done a very good job with this episode to in fact deliver a really nice story, once again basically proving the idea that new series Doctor Who should be the 45-minute plus format as opposed to the strictly 45-minute format, because all of these episodes in fact have showed what that extended 15 minutes can do. Much more effective script, much more room for development with the characters as well as establishment of the plot, and basically the whole idea for this one is we're stuck in a massive frozen planet / moon thing that also just happens to have an absolute ton of lasagna and peas in, so it's basically a massive Iceland that is going to crash into a planet and kill absolutely everybody. But yeah, that's fun. Get introduced to a robot for this release as well, because hey, it's a science fiction piratey style of episode, and of course you need a little helpful robot in there. He's of course destroyed halfway through the episode, so that is a little bit of a shame. I would like to see a little bit more of him, but yeah, generally I think that Rose has a little bit more to do. I think that the fact that she goes off and actually has sort of her own team, and the Doctor actually leaves her behind, but he doesn't exactly have a choice. The Ice Warriors are in fact a bit of an arse, to be honest, in this story. I think that they are definitely set on their idea of revenge, and in fact vengeance for the majority of this release, meaning that they are pretty much holding a grudge for the entirety of it, and he thinks that the main way to sort of cause pain and everything is basically by splitting off the Doctor and the companion on purpose and making them sort of be separated. And we have a few challenging scenes where the Doctor is in fact once again thinking that Rose is dead because she's been left behind on the ice worldy type planet thing. But yeah, I think that that is rather fun, once again playing on the heartstrings of the two characters, especially very effective for the Series 2 format. However, at the same time, I like that the fact that the Ice Warriors have actually got a little bit of a grudge going on. I think that's something rather effective to the Ice Warriors, very petty, but at the same time bringing it back to that comparison to humanity that we have at the very end, saying that both races are capable of absolutely amazing things. We have a few references to Peladon at the very end of the story, where the Doctor says eventually some of the Ice Warriors will become helpful and nice because he met a colony of them on Peladon in the future, or at least he refers to Peladon, not directly referencing it, but he says about that, and then he says each race is sort of capable of doing amazing things, however it's just tied down by petty squabbles and little arguments and wars, and I think that is something very relevant in today's day and age. However, at the same time, a very nice message to in fact deliver at the very end of a Doctor Who story. The idea to actually have it set as well on Cold Star, which is basically a massive freezer, I think that that is rather fun, a little bit sort of 1980s 80s-esque Doctor Who as well. I had a few sort of more Dragonfire elements in this one from the 7th Doctor era, which I think is something that is rather fun. I could imagine this episode in the actual series being rather bright and colourful, sort of having nice blues everywhere, and maybe some like garish logo from the 80s or something to sort of represent this more freezery type of planet. And as I said at the very end as well, bringing that idea of more realism in there and sort of asylum seekers, and Colony at the very end has in fact adapted to live with the Ice Warriors, but at the same time sort of push them to the side a little bit because they're asylum seekers. I think that is quite fun, and at the same time, if Matt Fitton could just write for the TV show, you could pretty much say some of this story is an original, however, some of its ideas are at the same time, and that is the main difference, I think. The main idea with this one at the very beginning isn't exactly original, however, that idea at the very ending 15 minutes that Matt Fitton has added has made this episode completely different. And then imagine that whole format and context applied to an actual TV story, and that is the difference between just a general repetitive story and something that is maybe a little bit repetitive, however, bringing in a few new elements in there as well. In summary for this story, I think it is in fact a rather nice contribution. I think that the general cast for this episode make this episode a strong release in the relationships that the different members of the team have, especially the relationship between the Doctor and Rose, and then when that is tested in the later half of the story as well, and generally the Ice Warriors just being a little bit of your petty sort of villain that want to go and do something, as I say, because of this grudge that they had pretty much 500 years ago, which at the very end of it sort of becomes a little bit irrelevant, because the main thing that the Ice Warrior General is fighting for is in fact something that pretty much died absolutely ages ago. It is the equivalent of somebody sort of picking a fight over something that happened in the Second or First World War. It's something like that that no longer is really relevant because it's already been done, it's already been dusted, and everything has been settled and people have generally moved on. I think that that is something with this one that is very good, and generally overall I guess makes this a worthy story. However, at the same time, it's probably my least favourite of the three, just because naturally it has a televised villain in there, and I wasn't really expecting too much for this one. Even though it has a headlining Doctor Who villain, I actually sort of got to prefer the more original formats, and I think that especially when that is accompanied with Big Finish writers, I know that they are generally a lot more creative with their own ideas and they can contribute their own things. And when it comes to referencing other sort of more pre-existing villains, it can get a little bit more tied down. Not to say that this episode isn't exactly any good. I do really like it. I think, as I said, the elements it in fact achieves and the message that it has behind it is in fact very strong. However, at the same time, the other two stories are in fact very strong contenders. But at the same time, these three stories aim in three different directions, and that generally overall is a big thing that I can compliment this series with, because the first episode is definitely a more stereotypical sci-fi comedic, definitely very self-indulgent, referring to Doctor Who kind of story that pretty much refers to its popularity within itself, as well as that sort of additional invasion effect in there as well, written by John Dorney, very effective for the first story. Then for those more historical Doctor Who fans, sort of more, if you're a fan of Girl in the Fireplace or The Unquiet Dead, a little bit more of a grim story, maybe even arguably a little bit more of the classic fan in there as well, you're definitely more in favour of sort of the second story, to sort of the Cavalier, as I say. And then the third story is a little bit more of your safety net Doctor Who fan episode, kind of, with that. If you're looking for an episode to get into Big Finish Doctor Who, then this may be a little bit of a gateway for you, but at the same time, to be quite honest, if you're debating getting into Big Finish, then I just recommend buying this whole set, to be quite honest, and then you get 3 episodes as opposed to only 1. And then at the same time, if these 3 episodes, or even just this episode, in fact, inspire you to get more Big Finish, I definitely recommend it. A lot more of the classic releases that definitely go a bit more experimental, because this is only a very small tip of the iceberg when it comes to Big Finish. Literally, how fun referring to a metaphor that is relating to ice in an Ice Warrior story. I completely didn't plan that whatsoever. But yeah, generally, these 10th Doctor adventures are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Doctor Who on Big Finish, and there is so much more to go into. So definitely, if you take anything from these reviews, go and listen to more Big Finish. Definitely recommend it, and hopefully you won't regret it. Thanks for watching this review, and if you've not checked out my previous reviews of the other 2 adventures on this release, I do recommend them. And if you have any questions about these 3 adventures from the 10th Doctor era, or Big Finish as a whole, then do leave them below, and I will be more than happy to respond to them at some point in the future. So thanks for watching. I guess I'll see you all in the next video, whatever that may be. Some more product reviews, probably some more audio dramas in there as well, to end out 2017, because we're nearly at the end. How? I don't know. This year's just gone incredibly fast. So thanks for watching this review, as I'll see you all next time. Bye for now.